Welcome to the podcast, our friend Allison Pohlman, who is the head coach at Drake. Allison, always a pleasure. Thank you for making time.
Oh, always worth the time. Great to have the reach out to want to connect. So thank you so much for the invite.
Well, I was in Des Moines in October and I called you and said, Hey, I'm down the street. Can you have some coffee? And you ran over and it was just great to connect with you. I really enjoy spending some time with you.
No, I mean, totally agree. I mean, when you have what I think are like passionate support people who really wish the best for everybody that they're surrounded by, which you are one of those great, I think, pioneers in that department, is just awesome to be able to connect and kind of feel the love of the support. So thank you.
I hope you get older and wiser. I hope they go together because that's what I think I'm experiencing as I'm getting older. I'm just trying to be wiser and more present about relationships. And, this is 38 years on the air for me. I don't know how much longer I'm going to go. I know in my mind how far I want to go, but we'll see. Right. And
Yeah,
then when you're done, like who are the people that you want to keep in touch with? I
that
think
is so true.
you
That is
start
so
looking at
true.
it through that lens and you start thinking about, I am actually in some ways the Rolodex for women's basketball. I have a lot of coaches that call me when they need a number. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to take that role over from me.
Right. Yeah, which is also like I mean, it's just a compliment to, like you said, the connections that you've made and the genuineness that you present, to those relationships. Because a lot of times it's relatively difficult to, not only be honest, but also be there for people, especially when you're being tugged in what feels like
Sure.
8 million different directions.
And I think that's where you are right now. You're facing a little bit of adversity in a situation that you personally have not been in maybe a long time, if ever, playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores. So there's a lot of learning going on. How's it
Yeah.
going?
Yes. Well, I think, so often in this occupation, you can dig yourself this rabbit hole and, sometimes peek out and, every once in a while it's I think that old saying, and even if it isn't a saying, it needs to be a saying of, check on your friends that maybe are losing because everybody's the first person to reach
Yeah.
out when you're having a phenomenal season and you're doing extremely well. But I do, and, just asking how I'm doing, like I've had a lot of support, a lot of people that have reached out, and you really wish that we could mature a little bit faster. You can't gain experience without actually having it. And so we're in that position of, each and every game trying to develop just a little bit of consistency. And some days we have it and some other days we don't, but it's a growing process. And just really continuing to, I guess, focus on our ability to try to get better every single day, and what is our work ethic and what's our competitive level.
I'm not a big reader, but I am reading this book called Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. And it was suggested to me by Commissioner Greg Sankey. And when
Wow.
he suggested it to me, I thought, wow, if he's reading that, it's probably something I ought to read. And so I can't tell you the countless number of people that I have suggested that book to. It's not a book that you can sit down and read for an hour and consume it like that. You got to
Yeah.
read a few pages, put a bookmark in it, go back and read a few pages, maybe go back to what you read. That's kind of what I've been doing. I've kind of been reading a lot of the same stuff over and over. And I think it just helps you think about what you have, being grateful, the adversity that we all face, and how quickly we try to manage through it. So, in the big scope of things, this is small adversity that
Right.
you're facing, right? Because you have a solutions based attitude about everything that you've ever done, Allison. So, what, like you said, you can't mature faster, and it takes some time. So, what are you doing every day to try to get that process stimulated?
Yeah. I think it's just a lot of conversation, a lot of, this year we've done a lot more, kind of to your point, Debbie, of really talking a ton about leadership, and not necessarily like directing it to a specific person, but how can our unit become better leaders? How can we have at least some knowledge base of what does leadership actually look like? What characteristics do great leaders embody, and in certain situations holding people accountable, but also just making them aware. So developing that awareness, I think, has been one of the bigger things that our coaching staff has focused in on. So it's chapters of books and it's us reading different things. It's watching a lot more film together. Our group this year, contrary to a lot of the years years that I've been at Drake in the past, loves to watch basketball. And so being
Hmm.
able to watch a lot of hoops together and to talk about a lot of different games, I think it's a great way to have conversation to continue to talk about just sport. And so that's been fun. So growing in that, and then, just understanding that skill development is, when your confidence is chinked, or you feel like maybe you're not exactly at the level that you're at or should be, or how you're performing in games, getting back in the gym and
Yeah.
developing that confidence. Shoot till your arm falls off.
Shoot till
Exactly.
your arm falls off,
Yes.
until you puke in a bucket, like just constantly working on your craft. I I I know that there's some validation in what you've done and what you've run. I don't want to use the word security, because everybody that's on a contract every day, we're fighting to keep our contracts and to keep working, right? But when you have kids that love the game, they watch it, which means they love it. And if they love it, that's a really good basis to work on for that kind of growth that you're looking for, don't you think? Like, don't you see that?
I do. I mean, I think, and I think also just, like the recognition of, like when it looks as it like what it looks like to be a great teammate, what it looks like to have a really sound like culture and foundation as a team. You can watch those interactions of different teams, and very quickly jump to conclusions on how people treat each other and
Totally.
how they act. But then when you look at the lens of like, okay, I'm going to go look in the mirror myself, sometimes it's a harsh reality, or really look at your true self. So I think all of those things are what we're working through and what we're continuing to to talk and hopefully educate and make aware of. And as a coach too, we're learning, our entire coaching staff, myself included, we're learning so many different things, I think, about each other and ourselves, each and every day.
Well, you can't stay the same, right? You're never going to be the
Right.
same. So, you can sit around and wallow, or like my coach would say, swish your feet, and then eventually you get out. But I know that you're going to get it spun back around, because you're going to compete, you're going to be prepared, and you just don't have the experience. That's the one thing that I will know. And in this league, I mean, the coaching is so good, they're gonna expose and exploit whatever you have, so you're gonna learn quickly, and your young players are gonna learn quickly, because they're gonna take advantage of whatever they think that you don't have, or how to manipulate certain situations. It's gonna be fun to watch from my lens. I don't know how much fun you're gonna have with all those young players, but I think that's kinda where we are, right?
No, it definitely is. And like what's really fascinating is, as a coach, you constantly talk about, communication and, the margin of error. It feels so minute. And, even in our last contest, our last time out, we got exposed on a number of certain possessions where, if you choose to have communication, if you choose to make decisions, like we know that basketball players have to do each and every second that you step on the floor, a few possessions could have gone a little bit differently. And so we're learning those lessons, and it's just the absorption, of how, when do you get kind of so tired of it that, you kind of draw a line in the sand, and you're
Mhm.
like, okay, this is no longer going to happen, and it's no longer a choice. I'm making it like this is going to be my standard. Because I think, Debbie, this is what's I think is really special about Drake and Drake women's basketball is we just, our program just won 1,000 wins. We're like one of 37 programs in the
It's awesome.
country. So we have the rich tradition of success and, all of that stuff. But now it's just, now we're not going to lower our standard. And so not lowering our standard, it just means everybody's got to make the choices, to do things how we're asking them to do.
I was reading something about, like, rules are for people that need directions, and standards are for people that aspire to do something greater. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but that's kind of what it is. Like you were just talking about standards. There are certain standards that you have to hold each other accountable for. You can't be the one that holds them accountable all the time. They've got to have some intrinsic motivation. And I'm sensing, after talking to you, that if they are watching and they are listening and they're learning and they're going to figure it out. And then we're going to replay this podcast next year and you're going to be totally flipped. It's going to be fun to watch.
No, it will be fun to watch. I hope we're watching this next week.
Okay, yeah, I
You
should
know how
say that.
patient coaches are. We're just not very patient at all. But I strongly agree with you on that point. And just as far as that experience and that maturity and the growth and stuff, it's just in a coaching world, you want it yesterday. And so this
Sure.
this one might just take us a little bit more time, but I know we're committed to making the appropriate changes and to right the ship.
Well, I know you got great leadership at Drake, and I know they understand that. So let me ask you this, because people watch you on the sideline and they think they know something about you, and they may not. And so humanizing these coaches is something that I cherish an opportunity to share. You and your triplets, if you feel like giving us the update or just telling us, like, what else are you doing now that Christmas decorations are down and you're in the grind of the season, you got to have some outlet. What are you doing?
Yeah. Wow, some outlet. I'm also a big reader. But one of the other things I think with my daughters, so they're all freshmen, in college. One of the other things that like I just absolutely positively love doing, whether it's a 30-minute FaceTime, or I have two that are actually on campus and one that's 45 minutes away, of just hey, you want to meet for coffee? And just 30 minutes of just being able to, like, I don't know, fill your soul with just some, I don't know, random updates of normal student life, and
Yeah.
the kind of the simplicity, but yet the I guess, I don't know, complexity also of trying to be a mom and be supportive and do all of those things, along with, like you kind of talked about, all of the other things that go along with standing on the sideline.
Being a mom is the best job, and getting a chance to spend time with your kids on campus or in a coffee shop has got to be absolutely really fun for you. I remember when they were just coming along and asking you questions about, you know, fall dances and proms and driving and all the things that come with all that. And now they're at another stage. I always tell parents, it just keeps getting better. Like it just keeps getting better with your kids, and they're always going to be your kids. It doesn't matter how old they are. I'm glad to hear that they're all doing well.
Yeah, they're
Anybody
doing.
want to coach?
No, no. I mean, uniquely enough, they I think that they might think coaching is just telling people what to do, because they like to do that. But I don't think, in the realm of sports, I don't think I have a coach in the bunch. But maybe along, like, at some point, maybe their own kids to be able, that would be my hope at some point for them to,
Yeah.
to take the plunge and be like, you know what, like, I got to watch this environment, and as supportive as you can be, and as positive of a light you can hopefully shine. Fingers crossed, hopefully.
It's not just your 3 kids, it's the other kids that you deal with all the time. Katie Denenbeer is back as your radio analyst, doing a little part-time work. I think she's still in pharmacy school, maybe,
Yes.
finishing that out. When you lose a player like that, that meant so much to your program, not just points and rebounds, but all the other things that we just finished talking about from a leadership standpoint. What's it been like to have her around? And do you look over there sometimes and want to sub her in, or do you kind of look over there and just be happy for her that she's moving on with her life?
A little bit of both. There's been a number of times when I watch her walk off the bus when we're headed into a game, and I just think, like, wow, man, it would be really nice if she had a uniform in that bag. But it's been such a breath of fresh air, because I think, like, I've made eye contact with her a couple times, I have to be honest, when she's doing the radio broadcast, and there will be things that happen in games, and you just have a connection.
Yeah.
You just, like, those types of players, like, are ready to finish your sentences before they even come out of your mouth, and they're finishing your thoughts. And she was indeed a special one. We had a really special class. And they've, under fire of being the first class, as my first year as a head coach. And I was learning. I mean, I was drinking from a fire hose, I still feel like I am. But they stuck with it, and I'll always be grateful for
Mhm.
for all of them. But yeah, but it's amazing watching Katie's, like, just, I don't know if it's like an elegance, and just she just it was beautiful, like, watching her play basketball, but it's even really cool watching her become the person she's going to be. It's just a special it's special that she still wants to give back to her program.
It's great that she can be an incredible role model for all those young players that you have on your roster as she travels through the valley with you and makes eye contact with you on turnovers and play calls and other things that she probably inherently knows what you're thinking.
Yeah.
As you said, you guys were so connected, but special place, special people, special times, and they're always going to be special for you, Allison, because of the way you go about conducting your business on a day to day. So, thank you for being with us on the podcast on Nothing But Net.